Today, we're going to peel back the curtain on one of the most powerful institutions in the world, and we're going to explore a pretty wild idea that modern money operates less like a science and a whole lot more like a religion. So, let me ask you a question. What do the Federal Reserve and the Catholic Church have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup to a bad joke, right? But stick with me, because this isn't some clever metaphor. It's a serious argument that these two institutions, these massive global powers, are actually built on the exact same foundations: power, authority, and most importantly, belief.
Just think about it for a second. On one hand, you've got the Vatican. Its essential authority on faith, on the soul, on salvation itself. And on the other hand, you've got the Federal Reserve, headquartered in the Eccles Building. Its essential authority on the value of our money. Both of them hold this incredible power, shaping the most fundamental parts of life for literally billions of people.
And that gets us to the absolute core idea we're digging into today. The Federal Reserve basically functions as a modern, secular church. I'm talking a high priesthood of economists, sacred texts of macroeconomic theory, mysterious rituals, and powerful sacraments. All of it designed to do one thing: maintain our faith in the system.
Now here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. This connection between finance and faith, it's not new, not at all. In fact, to really understand the system we have today, we have to go way, way back to a time when economics was just a branch of moral theology.
Picture this. It's 16th century Spain. Gold and silver are pouring in from the Americas, and a group of theologians at the School of Salamanca notice something weird is happening. Prices for everything are going up. They were the very first people to really articulate what we now call the quantity theory of money. You know, more money chasing the same amount of stuff leads to inflation. But here's the kicker. For them, this wasn't some dry economic formula. No. It was a deep, profound question of morality, of justice.
And this right here, this is the smoking gun. A Jesuit scholar named Juan de Mariana argued that when a king messed with the currency, debased it, without the people's consent, it was basically a form of theft. It was a tyrannical act. And that moral argument from over 400 years ago is the direct theological ancestor of one of the most sacred beliefs in all of modern finance: central bank independence.
Okay, so fast forward to today. How does all this history actually play out now? Well, if the Fed is a church, then just like any church, it's got to have a priesthood and a set of rituals that define its power.
And to understand that power, you have to know about something called the Cantillon effect. It's actually a pretty simple but totally game-changing idea. When new money is created, it doesn't just, rain down from the sky on everybody equally. Not even close. It gets injected at very specific points in the system. And the people closest to that money spigot, we're talking the big banks, the major financial institutions, they get to spend it first, when it's worth the most, before it works its way through the economy and jacks up prices for everyone else.
And the perfect modern-day example of this? Quantitative easing, or QE. The Fed creates money ex nihilo, literally out of nothing, almost like a divine act. But this brand new money isn't given to you or me. Oh no, it's injected into a handful of huge primary dealer banks. From there, it floods into financial markets, pumping up the price of stocks and bonds. And the result? The people who already own most of those assets get a whole lot richer. Any benefit that gets to the rest of the economy, well, it's just a trickle.
Now, to keep up its authority, this priesthood even has its own special liturgical language. You know how the church used Latin for centuries to create a sense of mystery and power? Well, the Feds uses Fedspeak, this deliberately complicated, ambiguous jargon. Alan Greenspan, the maestro, the high priest himself, basically admitted it. The goal is often to confuse people, not to make things clear. It just reinforces this idea that money is this great mystery that only the chosen few can possibly understand.
So, let's cut through all the noise. Let's strip away the fancy language and the official mission statements. What are the real-world consequences of this whole system? What does it actually produce for regular people? To figure that out, we're going to use this really powerful mental tool from systems theory. It's called POSIWIDE. It's an acronym that stands for the purpose of a system is what it does. The idea is simple. Forget what they say the system is for. Just look at what it does consistently over and over again. So if a system constantly creates widening inequality, well, from a POSIWIDE perspective, that is its purpose.
And believe me, when you look at the data, it is just jaw-dropping. According to the Federal Reserve's own numbers, the top 10% of American households own almost 90% of the entire stock market.
So think about it. When your main policy tool is designed to make asset prices go up, it is by definition a policy designed to mostly help a small, wealthy minority.
I mean, come on, just look at this chart. The connection is impossible to miss. Between 2008 and 2022, the Fed's balance sheet exploded by 800% as they pumped trillions into the system. And what happened to the stock market? It shot to the moon. A PIOSIWYD analysis tells you this isn't some happy accident. It's the system working exactly like it's supposed to. It's a feature, not a bug.
And this didn't just stay in the stock market. Oh no, it came for the American dream itself, owning a home. Fed policy made it insanely cheap for huge Wall Street firms to borrow billions of dollars, way cheaper than you or I could ever get a mortgage. So what they do? They went on an unprecedented buying spree, gobbling up houses with all-cash offers that regular families just couldn't compete with. They literally turned neighborhoods into investment portfolios, transforming homes into just another asset class for global investors.
But here's where the story gets really interesting, because now this financial church is facing its own reformation. And just like back in the 16th century, the challenges are coming from new technologies and radical new ideas, sparking what you might call a digital reformation.
And the parallels here are, honestly, they're kind of spooky. On October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther nails his 95 Theses to a church door, attacking the corrupt sale of so-called indulgences. Fast forward exactly 491 years later, to the day, October 31st, 2008. In the middle of the worst financial crisis in generations, Satoshi Nakamoto publishes the Bitcoin white paper as a direct attack on the breach of trust from central banks bailing out the very system that failed.
And at the exact same time, there's a huge split happening on the world stage, a great schism. You have the BRICS nations actively building their own parallel financial system to get out from under the US dollar. They're settling trade in their own currencies, they're buying up tons of gold. This isn't just some boring economic trend, it's a flat-out rejection of the Fed's universal power, kind of like the Great Schism that split the church between Rome and Constantinople centuries ago.
So that's where we are now. The monopoly on trust, the very belief that has held our entire monetary system together for decades, is starting to break down. It's being challenged from the bottom up by a technological reformation, and it's being challenged from the outside by a geopolitical schism. The old financial church is under siege. And the big question is, will it reform itself? Will it fracture into pieces? Or will it be replaced entirely? That is the defining economic question of our time.